Homeownership has long been considered a cornerstone of the American dream, yet for many Black individuals and families, this dream remains elusive due to systemic racism embedded in housing policy. Historical practices, such as redlining and racially discriminatory lending, have created barriers that consistently hinder access to homeownership. These issues are not relics of the past. Their effects ripple through generations, severely limiting wealth accumulation among Black communities. The significance of homeownership cannot be overstated. It is often the most substantial asset in a family's portfolio and serves as a primary vehicle for building intergenerational wealth. When one group is systematically denied this opportunity, the wealth gap widens, perpetuating cycles of poverty and economic instability. Understanding the historical context is crucial to grasping today's disparities in the housing market. From segregationist policies to current predatory practices, systemic obstacles remain that disproportionately impact Black buyers. This inequity shapes not only individual lives, but also entire communities, stifling progress and prosperity in profound ways. As we explore the 10 states where these barriers are most acute, we'll uncover the hidden realities faced by those seeking to claim their stake in the American dream. Redlining, a term that originated from the practice of outlining neighborhoods in red ink to designate them as high risk for mortgage lending, has been a critical factor in shaping the housing landscape in the United States. This practice began in the 1930s as part of government-sponsored initiatives aimed at assessing the creditworthiness of neighborhoods. Predominantly Black areas were often classified as undesirable, leading to widespread denial of loans and insurance for residents. The implications of redlining have been profound and lasting. Entire communities were denied access to homeownership, effectively locking out generations from building wealth through property ownership. This form of segregation not only inhibited economic mobility, but also led to neglect in infrastructure and public services within those neighborhoods, exacerbating poverty and limiting opportunities. Moreover, the impacts of redlining are still felt today, as areas that were once redlined continue to struggle with disinvestment and limited access to quality housing. As we delve deeper into the states where these barriers persist, we see how the legacy of redlining continues to affect Black homeownership rates, perpetuating cycles of inequality that are difficult to break. As we explore the landscape of homeownership challenges for Black individuals, it becomes clear that certain states exhibit particularly significant barriers. A recent analysis highlights 10 states where systemic issues are most pronounced, creating formidable obstacles for those seeking to purchase a home. In states like Alabama and Mississippi, the combined effects of historical segregation policies and current discriminatory practices have resulted in striking disparities. For instance, Black homeownership rates in these states hover around 40% compared to over 70% for white residents. Other states, such as Georgia and Louisiana, showcase similar trends, where gentrification and economic inequality further complicate the pursuit of homeownership for Black families. Key statistics reveal that cities in these states often feature stark differences in property values and access to credit, reinforcing cycles of disadvantage. As we delve into each state, it becomes crucial to understand not only the statistics but also the lived experiences behind them. These figures tell a story of systemic neglect and persistent barriers that have long-lasting implications for Black families striving for the American dream of homeownership. In Alabama, the legacy of racial segregation profoundly influences the current housing landscape, creating formidable barriers for Black homebuyers. The state has a long history of discriminatory practices, from redlining to biased lending policies that disadvantage Black individuals seeking mortgages. Research shows that many predominantly Black neighborhoods still struggle with reduced access to financial services and resources, contributing to lower homeownership rates. One stark example is found in Birmingham, where systemic neglect has led to significant disparities in property values and housing quality compared to predominantly white areas. Residents in these neighborhoods often face higher interest rates and fewer financing options, making homeownership an arduous task. In rural regions, many communities experience similar challenges, with limited access to credit and investment further entrenching economic inequality. Moreover, the combined effects of local zoning laws and inadequate public infrastructure only exacerbate the situation. As we investigate Alabama's housing landscape, it becomes increasingly evident that addressing these systemic injustices is crucial for fostering equitable opportunities for Black families aspiring to own homes and secure a better future. Mississippi presents a particularly challenging landscape for Black homebuyers, shaped by deep-rooted economic disparities and the lingering effects of Jim Crow laws. Historically, these laws enforced racial segregation and discrimination, which have left a lasting imprint on today's housing market. The result is a system that still marginalizes Black families, limiting their opportunities for homeownership. In many communities across Mississippi, access to affordable housing remains severely restricted. While the state boasts scenic rural areas and vibrant cities like Jackson, Black residents often struggle to find housing that meets their financial means or offers decent living conditions. Discriminatory lending practices further exacerbate this challenge, as Black applicants frequently face higher denial rates and less favorable loan terms. Additionally, economic inequities manifest in the form of stagnant wages and limited job opportunities for Black workers, making it difficult to save for a down payment. The lack of investment in historically Black neighborhoods has translated into deteriorating infrastructure and underfunded public services, hindering overall community development. Addressing these systemic barriers is essential for improving access to homeownership and fostering genuine economic mobility for Black families in Mississippi. Louisiana, particularly in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, has faced severe challenges that disproportionately affect Black homeownership. The devastating storm in 2005 not only resulted in significant loss of life, but also dramatically altered the housing landscape in New Orleans and beyond. Many Black residents, already grappling with economic disparities, found themselves displaced and struggling to return to a city where affordable housing options were rapidly shrinking. In the years following the hurricane, redevelopment efforts often sidelined the needs of low-income communities, leading to an oversupply of high-end housing and a critical shortage of affordable units. Discriminatory practices in zoning and development further marginalize Black families, making it increasingly difficult for them to reclaim their homes or find new housing within the city. Moreover, the impact of gentrification in historically Black neighborhoods has intensified, driving up property values and taxes, which in turn displaces long-standing residents. These ongoing dynamics highlight the urgent need for policies that support equitable recovery and create accessible housing solutions. Addressing these issues is vital for restoring homeownership opportunities for Black families and fostering community resilience in Louisiana. Georgia, particularly the city of Atlanta, exemplifies the complex challenges of gentrification and its impact on Black residents. Over the past 2 decades, Atlanta has experienced significant economic growth and urban development, attracting new businesses and affluent populations. However, this revitalization has often come at the expense of long-standing Black communities, leading to widespread displacement as rising property values and rents make it increasingly unaffordable for many families. Neighborhoods that were once vibrant centers of Black culture and history have seen rapid transformations, with new developments replacing affordable housing units. The result is a widening wealth gap, where Black families find themselves pushed out of their homes and communities, unable to benefit from the economic growth that surrounds them. This dynamic contributes to a cycle of inequality, as displaced residents face challenges in securing housing elsewhere, often in less desirable areas with fewer resources. Furthermore, discriminatory lending practices persist, limiting access to credit for aspiring Black homeowners. As we delve deeper into Georgia's housing landscape, it becomes clear that addressing these issues is crucial to ensuring equitable opportunities for all residents and reversing the trend of displacement in Atlanta's rapidly changing urban fabric. In South Carolina, discriminatory zoning laws play a significant role in hindering black families from achieving homeownership. These laws, which dictate where different types of housing can be built, often favor single-family homes in affluent neighborhoods and limit the development of affordable housing options in areas where black communities reside. This perpetuates a cycle of exclusion that makes it increasingly difficult for black families to find suitable and affordable places to live. For instance, in cities like Charleston and Columbia, the push for upscale developments has displaced many low-income residents while simultaneously restricting new developments that could provide affordable housing. As property values rise in predominantly white neighborhoods, black families are left with fewer options and are often forced into less desirable areas with limited access to quality schools, healthcare, and employment opportunities. Additionally, the lack of investment in infrastructure and public services in historically marginalized communities further exacerbates the challenges black families face in seeking homeownership. Addressing these discriminatory zoning practices is essential for creating equitable housing opportunities and fostering inclusive communities where all families can thrive. Without meaningful reform, South Carolina will continue to see disparities that hinder the American dream for countless black residents. In Arkansas, local policies and a lack of investment in black neighborhoods significantly hinder homeownership opportunities for black families. Many cities, particularly those with historical significance to the African American community, have seen minimal development and infrastructure improvements, resulting in declining property values and limited housing options. This neglect not only diminishes the quality of life for residents, but also deters potential investors and homebuyers from entering these areas. Access to credit remains another critical barrier, as discriminatory lending practices disproportionately affect black applicants. Studies indicate that black individuals in Arkansas often face higher interest rates and are more likely to be denied loans than their white counterparts, regardless of their financial qualifications. This disparity creates a significant obstacle for aspiring homeowners, making it difficult for them to secure financing for purchasing homes. Additionally, the prevailing economic conditions, including lower wages and fewer job opportunities in predominantly black neighborhoods, exacerbate the challenges of saving for down payments. As we analyze Arkansas's housing landscape, it becomes clear that addressing these systemic issues is essential to fostering equitable access to home ownership and promoting economic growth in marginalized communities. In Tennessee, especially in Nashville, the rapid growth and economic development have created significant challenges for black home ownership. As the city has gained national attention for its vibrant culture and booming job market, the influx of new residents has led to skyrocketing housing prices, pushing many low-income families further away from their communities. This gentrification not only displaces long-standing black residents, but also limits their access to crucial resources and amenities. The race for urban revitalization often prioritizes upscale developments, sidelining affordable housing options that are desperately needed in black neighborhoods. Consequently, many families find themselves trapped in a cycle of renting, unable to save for down payments while faced with rising rents. The lack of investment in these neighborhoods compounds the issue, perpetuating a sense of economic disparity and instability. Moreover, black applicants continue to face significant hurdles in securing financing as discriminatory lending practices persist in Nashville's market. These barriers create overwhelming obstacles for aspiring homeowners seeking to participate in the city's economic growth. To foster equitable homeownership opportunities, it is essential to address these systemic challenges and ensure that all communities can benefit from Nashville's prosperity. In New York, the housing crisis presents significant challenges for black homebuyers, particularly in urban areas like New York City. The skyrocketing cost of living and limited availability of affordable housing have created a daunting environment for low-income families, disproportionately impacting black residents who already face systemic barriers in access to home ownership. In neighborhoods that were once affordable, gentrification has transformed the landscape, leading to rising rents and property values that push Black families out of their communities. Moreover, racial disparities in home buying are stark. Despite having similar income levels as white applicants, Black individuals often face discrimination in loan approval rates and interest terms, limiting their ability to secure financing. The lack of investment in historically Black neighborhoods further exacerbates this issue, as these areas continue to suffer from underfunded public services and inadequate infrastructure, making them less appealing for potential buyers. With the demand for housing outstripping supply, it is essential to implement policies that prioritize affordable housing development and combat discriminatory practices in lending. Addressing these issues is vital in creating equitable opportunities for Black families aspiring to achieve homeownership in New York's competitive market. In Illinois, particularly in Chicago, the legacy of housing segregation remains a significant barrier for Black homebuyers. Historical practices including redlining and restrictive covenants have led to long-standing racial divides in housing access, reinforcing patterns of segregation that persist today. Public policies have often failed to address these injustices, resulting in neighborhoods that are starkly divided by race and income. Many Black families find themselves relegated to undervalued areas with limited access to resources, such as quality education and healthcare. The lack of investment in these neighborhoods further compounds the problem, leading to declining property values and inadequate infrastructure. Community resistance has emerged as a powerful force against these systemic issues, with grassroots organizations advocating for equitable housing practices and increased investment in historically marginalized communities. The struggle for affordable housing is intensified by discriminatory lending practices that disproportionately affect Black applicants. Studies reveal they often face higher rates of denial and unfavorable terms compared to white homebuyers. As we delve into Chicago's housing landscape, it becomes crucial to recognize the efforts of community advocates striving to dismantle barriers and promote policies that foster inclusivity and ensure fair access to home ownership for all residents. In Ohio, historical housing discrimination has significantly impacted Black homebuyers, perpetuating economic disparities that continue today. Discriminatory practices dating back to the mid-20th century, including redlining and exclusionary zoning policies, have left lasting scars on communities and restricted Black families' access to quality housing. In cities like Cleveland and Columbus, the neighborhoods where many Black residents live suffer from underinvestment and limited access to resources. Current economic factors further complicate the homeownership landscape. Rising property values and an increasing cost of living make it difficult for low-income Black families to save for down payments. Additionally, discriminatory lending practices persist, with studies showing that Black applicants often face higher denial rates and worse loan terms compared to white counterparts, regardless of their income levels. As a result, many Black families find themselves trapped in cycles of renting or forced to relocate to less desirable areas with limited opportunities for growth. Community activists in Ohio are working tirelessly to combat these barriers by advocating for policy reforms that promote affordable housing development and equitable lending practices. Addressing these systemic issues is essential for creating a fairer housing market and enhancing home ownership opportunities for Black families in the state. Recent statistics on Black home ownership rates across the 10 identified states reveal a troubling trend. The gap between Black and white home ownership continues to widen. In Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana, for example, Black home ownership rates hover around 40 to 45% compared to over 70% for white residents. These disparities highlight not only the enduring impact of historical injustices, but also the current systemic barriers that continue to impede Black families from achieving home ownership. States like Georgia and Illinois reflect similar patterns, where gentrification and housing segregation exacerbate these challenges. In urban areas such as Atlanta and Chicago, rising housing costs and limited access to credit make it increasingly difficult for Black families to enter the housing market. The persistence of discriminatory lending practices further compounds these issues, as Black applicants often face higher denial rates and less favorable loan terms. Additionally, the lack of investment in predominantly Black neighborhoods leads to declining property values, perpetuating cycles of poverty and limiting wealth accumulation. Addressing these current trends and understanding their implications is critical for developing effective policies aimed at closing the homeownership gap and fostering equitable opportunities for all families. Advocacy plays a crucial role in combating housing discrimination and improving access to homeownership for Black families. Numerous organizations across the country are dedicated to addressing these systemic barriers, working tirelessly to promote fair housing practices and push for meaningful policy changes. Groups such as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and the National Fair Housing Alliance, NFHA, focus on raising awareness about discrimination in lending and housing, offering resources and support to affected families. In addition, local grassroots organizations are mobilizing communities to challenge discriminatory practices and advocate for affordable housing initiatives. These efforts include lobbying for legislation that addresses zoning laws, increases funding for affordable housing projects,